It's really fishy how cheap UAD products are getting lately. I don't know if anyone's noticing, but there's been a steady decline and drop off of these Apollo units. The Twin is so cheap right now. I mean, even just in recent history, I mean, it's gone down like 300, 400, 500 bucks on some units. And it used to be even more expensive than that a couple years ago. I don't know for sure what's going on here, but we have to look into it because a lot of us Apollo users might be a little afraid of what could be around the corner. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't like to do that too much. I don't like to kind of give attention where it's not necessary, but when it comes to UAD, their business model has been very, very tricky. I'm sure we're all very aware that they're moving everything onto their native platform slowly but surely. All of their most valuable and important UAD plugins are now available natively. This was a big move for them and definitely put a lot of us engineers who own Apollos, who own satellites, into a space where we're not sure if we're going to be able to get the value out of our units the way that we paid for them or the amount of money that we paid for them. And these DSP accelerators are maybe going to be obsolete soon. I'm somebody who's had multiple satellites. I've had two satellites, a UAD Windows one and a UAD Mac one, and they were not cheap. They weren't cheap at all, just to use these UAD plugins. So that is definitely something to be afraid of. If I were you, I would not go out and buy any satellites at all. Do not buy satellites anymore, guys. I don't think that it's a good investment for you. They're all going to be obsolete at some point. So that's the first thing to talk about. If you haven't noticed the price drop there, have a little look. The other thing is their interfaces. Their interfaces are becoming cheaper and cheaper. Of course, there's been a decrease in demand for the higher end Apollo interfaces, and rightfully so. A lot of really great interfaces have been coming out that are more and more affordable by the day. You've got interfaces like the Neumann MT48, which has so many features in it. It isn't the craziest converter ever, but it's really, really good. And it's really affordable when you compare it to an interface like an Apollo Twin Quad, or an Apollo X6 or whatever. It is a really good option with a lot of I/O or a lot of connectivity. And so when you have an interface like that has even better conversion than the Apollo, that has a really good amount of features and a lot of things you can do with it, it kind of gives me a little bit of an idea of why their interfaces are becoming cheaper and cheaper and why people might not be buying them as much anymore. The Apollo is a really good lineup of interfaces, and those interfaces have done a lot for us and a lot for the music industry. And I always want to give an ode and respect that, because I myself came up using an Apollo. That was my first kind of like over $1,000 interface. But when I bought my Apollo, it was almost 2,000. It was like 1,700 US dollars. And the same Apollo today, the newer version of it, goes for $1,000, 1,070 or something like that. That is really weird to me. All right. So what I would like to say about this, what I think is happening, is that UAD is crumbling. I think UAD is falling apart as a company. I think they have really good products, but I do believe that there is a buyout or there is some kind of valuation they're trying to get to. They're trying to make sales. They're trying to get rid of the company. I do believe that's what's going on. When you have so many plugins that people are moving into a native platform, when you have interfaces that are getting cheaper, when you have a bunch of decade-long users or multiple decade-long fan base and customers and people who have invested in your gear and your products who might not be able to use it anymore when you do these things, it kind of looks like you're trying to make an exit. You're trying to get out of whatever situation you're in. You sell your business and get as much money as you can. As a business person, something that I do know is if you can leverage your business properly, if you can be as liquid as possible in the final year before or final 2 years before selling your business, you can inflate your operational costs, you can inflate your revenue, you can inflate everything to make your company look like it's so much bigger than it is in order to sell it for top dollar. Now, of course, this isn't necessarily the most ethical thing, but be honest with yourselves. Not a lot of people know about audio, but a lot of people who buy companies don't have to. They just need to see the numbers. When you look at companies like, I don't know, Fujifilm, or you look at other companies that are very, very creative, a lot of people who are running them are not necessarily the world's best photographers, the world's best developers, are not people who are in that space, and audio is no different. Sometimes you have people at the very top that really care and really get it, like with R&D. Rupert Neve is that company. But then you have other companies where it's not the same at all. So, with that being said, just be careful when it comes to UAD stuff. Be careful what you're buying. Try not to buy satellites. Things are going native. Try not necessarily to invest in an Apollo brand new, okay? Buy a used one. The price is going to continue to go down. So you don't want to spend any more money than you have to. Do I still think they're worthwhile investments? Do I think they're good investments still? I absolutely think that Apollo units and Apollo interfaces are a good investment still. But we have to be wary that if we're going into it for the plug-in side, if we're going into it for DSP, if we're going into it for any reason beyond just having a good interface, something might happen soon. And research and development, firmware updates, software updates, plugin updates, all these things that we are going to need for our units to remain usable in the future, because it is very much so reliant on the software that they put out for the units. That might be a bit of a tricky situation if they're going to sell this company. You don't know what can happen. Okay, so just be aware. Wanted to drop that here and just let you guys talk about it. I mean, that's my hot take. Thanks for tuning in, and ciao.